He was called the King of the Gods, Lord of Olympus, the wielder of the thunderbolt. To many, Zeus was the supreme ruler of order and justice in the ancient world. But beneath the marble temples and heroic myths lies another story. What if the so-called protector of Olympus wasn't a hero at all? What if the god of gods was the greatest tyrant of them all? Was Zeus truly a bringer of justice, or a god drunk on power? Why did he punish those who sought knowledge, betray his own blood, and destroy anyone who dared to challenge him? In this video, we unravel the dark truths behind the myths, expose the manipulations, the betrayals, the fear that ruled Olympus, and reveal why, in the grand tapestry of Greek mythology, Zeus might not be the hero we were told he was. This is the untold story of Olympus's king. It began with fire, a gift meant to elevate mankind, to give them warmth, survival, and power. Prometheus, the titan of foresight, saw potential in humanity, a spark of greatness waiting to ignite. So he defied Olympus. He stole fire from the gods and gave it to mortals. To the people, it was a blessing. To Zeus, it was an unforgivable act of rebellion. Zeus didn't just punish Prometheus, he made him a warning. Bound to a jagged mountain, the Titan was sentenced to an eternal torment. Every day, an eagle would tear into his flesh, devouring his liver, only for it to grow back overnight. An immortal execution, carried out in silence. But Zeus wasn't finished. Where Prometheus gave humanity hope, Zeus gave them Pandora. Crafted to be flawless, Pandora was not a gift. She was a weapon. The gods imbued her with charm, beauty, and a fatal curiosity. When she opened the jar, whether by fate or design, she unleashed every form of suffering upon the world: war, plague, pain. Zeus didn't just punish Prometheus, he punished every mortal for daring to dream. This was not justice, this was control, a calculated strike to remind humanity and the gods that no flame burns without Zeus's permission. Her name was Io, a priestess of Hera, faithful, innocent, but in the eyes of Zeus, she was something else entirely. Zeus, ever the predator cloaked in divinity, descended from Olympus not with thunder, but with seduction. What happened between them is lost in myth. Was she lured? Was she taken? What we do know is what followed. Hera, the queen of the gods, had grown accustomed to Zeus's betrayal, but this time, she was close. Too close. In a desperate act of deceit, Zeus transformed Io into a heifer, a dumb, helpless animal, stripped of her voice, her dignity, her freedom. He didn't protect her, he erased her. When Hera arrived, she saw through the lie, as she always did. But she played along. She asked for the cow as a gift, and Zeus, trapped by his own deception, had no choice but to give her away. Io was turned from priestess to prisoner, a pawn in a divine game between a god drunk on lust and a goddess seething with fury. This wasn't the story of love or punishment. It was the story of a man who would twist reality itself to hide his guilt, to protect his image, and to leave the broken pieces behind him. The gods of Olympus once ruled over chaos, but Zeus didn't just want order, he demanded dominance. When the giants rose up, children of the earth and sky, they weren't villains, they were a response. Born of Gaia herself, they rose to challenge the gods, to reclaim the balance Zeus had shattered. Zeus met them not with negotiation, but with annihilation. From his throne, he hurled storms upon them, unrelenting, unforgiving. He didn't just defeat the giants, he buried them beneath mountains, erased their voices from the world, their rebellion, crushed beneath Olympian arrogance. There is no mercy, only victory at any cost. But from the depths of the underworld came something even Zeus feared: Typhon, the storm embodied, a creature forged by Gaia in rage and despair to end the tyranny of Olympus. Typhon was chaos incarnate, taller than mountains, stronger than titans, and for the first time, Zeus fled. The king of the gods disguised himself, hiding among mortals like a coward, until the fear passed. Until he returned with wrath unlike anything the heavens had seen. Their battle scorched the earth and split the skies, but Zeus didn't just want to win, he wanted to destroy. He hurled Typhon into the deepest pit and buried him in flame, not to protect the world, but to silence the one creature who dared to unseat him. In the myths, he is called a hero, a savior, but his rule is written in ash and blood, and every rebellion, no matter how just, was met with absolute destruction. In the realm of Hades, where time stands still, two souls suffer without end, not for crimes of chaos, but for defying a god who would not be challenged. Sisyphus, king of Corinth, cunning, charismatic, a mortal who outwitted the gods again and again. He tricked death, cheated fate, and dared to believe that no one, not even Zeus, was beyond manipulation. But the king of Olympus does not tolerate clever men, especially not mortal ones. Zeus sentenced Sisyphus to eternal labor, a pointless task, repeated through eternity, punishment not for evil, but for defiance. Then there was Tantalus, favored once by the gods, invited to dine at their immortal table, trusted, respected, until he crossed the invisible line. He served them a feast made from his own son, a grotesque test of their divinity, an insult masked as offering. The reaction was swift, absolute. Tantalus became an eternal warning, a symbol of what happens when mortals mock the gods, forever thirsty, forever starving. Temptation inches away, but never his. Zeus's message carved in suffering: you do not shame the divine and walk free. These weren't punishments of justice. They were performances, crafted to send a message. Zeus didn't correct disorder, he crushed rebellion, and made a spectacle of suffering. They called it Olympus, home of the gods, but even among the divine, there was fear. Zeus didn't just rule over mortals, he ruled his own family with the same iron grip. Disobedience wasn't met with discussion, it was met with domination. There came a time when even the gods had had enough. Hera, queen of Olympus, his own wife, led a quiet rebellion. They dared to imprison the king of the gods, to strip him of thunder and control, just long enough to feel free. But Zeus had allies and fury, and when he rose again, the storm returned with him. He hung Hera from the sky in chains, her screams echoing across the heavens, not for war, but for daring to speak against him. Poseidon and Apollo were cast from Olympus, exiled, shamed, sent to labor among mortals, building walls for kings, their powers stripped by a father they could not defy. Even among immortals, power corrupts. Zeus did not lead by wisdom, he ruled by fear, and those closest to him, his own blood, were never safe from the wrath of their king. In the mortal world, tyrants rise and fall, but in Olympus, Zeus reigned eternal because no one dared to rise again. It began with vows, a union said to bring balance to Olympus. Hera, the goddess of marriage, loyalty, and order, became queen to the most powerful god of all. But Zeus was no husband. He was a god of appetite, of conquest, and loyalty was a word he spoke, not lived. Leto, Semele, Alcmene, Callisto, Europa, Io, Danae. To name them all would take hours, but their stories echo the same pattern: seduction, deception, consequence. Zeus wore many masks: a swan, a bull, a shower of gold. Anything to reach the women he desired. Consent blurred, power unquestioned. And Hera knew each affair was a scar, etched not just into her pride, but into the fabric of Olympus itself. But her fury found the wrong targets. Semele burned to ash. Callisto turned into a bear. Leto chased across the world while pregnant. Zeus stayed untouched, while Hera waged a private war on his victims. From Zeus's infidelity came a generation of illegitimate heirs, heroes, monsters, tragedies, their lives shaped by the lust of a god and the wrath of a queen. What began as divine matrimony became a battlefield of betrayal, and Olympus, the seat of order, was ruled by a broken oath, and a king who broke it endlessly. In the realm of gods, words hold weight. A promise made by a god was not just a vow, it was law. Swearing by the river Styx bound even immortals. To break such an oath was to court ruin, and none knew this better than Zeus, but he broke them anyway. Zeus had sworn on the Styx to grant Semele any wish. She asked to behold his godhood. He warned her, but he couldn't back down. A vow to the Styx left no room for mercy. She died, pregnant with his child. Zeus's oath became her death sentence. Zeus had promised him favor, but when Tantalus crossed the line, that promise was forgotten. His punishment was eternal temptation, a reminder. Zeus's favor was a coin that could vanish in a flash of thunder. He swore not to interfere, yet shifted the scales of battle like a hidden hand. He whispered to Thetis. He watched his son Sarpedon fall and wept, but did nothing. Or so it seemed. Neutrality was never neutrality with Zeus. It was strategy, a vow made to mask intent. And so the god of order became the architect of instability, not through war, but through broken words. Every promise made by Zeus became a question mark, a god whose word meant nothing, yet whose wrath meant everything. In the ancient woods of Boeotia, one man took a single wrong step, not toward war, not toward rebellion, but into the gaze of a goddess, and for that, he was sentenced to die. What he saw was not desire, not temptation, but the impossible, a glimpse of divinity forbidden to mortal eyes. And Zeus did nothing to temper what came next. Artemis acted, but the power behind her vengeance, the order that allowed such divine cruelty, came from Olympus, from Zeus, the architect of retribution. Stripped of speech, stripped of identity, his punishment wasn't death. It was being hunted by his own men, by his own hounds. Turned into a stag, they tore him apart, bone from flesh, memory from legend. And Zeus, ever silent, let it unfold. In his realm, there were no accidents, only consequences. Witnessing a god, even by chance, was enough, and punishment, swift, brutal, and absolute, was the only constant. Actaeon's death wasn't justice. It was a warning, a reminder that the gods, especially Zeus, did not forgive. They punished. She was a queen, a mother of 14, a woman who dared to compare herself to a goddess. Niobe mocked the divine. Why honor Leto? She asked. A goddess with only 2 children, when I have so many? She had spoken blasphemy, and the response was slaughter. Zeus gave no warning, no plea for mercy. He watched as his children executed his will, with clinical precision. 14 lives erased, not for rebellion, not for treason, but for pride. Far from palaces and queens, another mortal dared to rise, not with arrogance, but with artistry. She didn't lie, she told the truth, and that was her crime. Athena, humiliated, lashes out, but Zeus, the king of gods, could have stopped her. He didn't. Arachne lives, but as a spider, doomed to weave forever in silence, a living monument to divine intolerance. One dared to boast, the other dared to create. Both were crushed beneath the weight of Olympus. To the mortals of Earth, he was the Stormbringer, the Sky Father, the almighty protector of order. But behind the worship was fear. Because to Zeus, mortals were not children, they were pawns. He descended when he pleased, in disguise, in shadow, or in golden light, not to protect, but to possess. Not once, not twice, but countless times. He exploited the trust of mortals, their awe, their weakness. Zeus did not ask, he took, and left behind chaos. And the consequences, they never fell on him. They fell on the women, the children, the cities they came from. He broke the world with his whims, then watched it beg for mercy. This was no distant god of benevolence, no wise father of men. This was power, unchecked, ego, untouched, divinity without duty. To Zeus, mortals were not sacred. They were stories to write and then erase. Among gods, hierarchy is law, but at the top stood one who believed himself untouchable. Zeus, the self-crowned emperor of immortality, did not just govern Olympus, he dominated it. It began in victory, Zeus overthrew his father, he freed his siblings, he saved the world, or so the myths claimed. What began as leadership became entitlement. Rather than rally Olympus, he overshadowed it. While others fought together, Zeus scorched entire armies alone, more to assert dominance than defend order. Resentment brewed among his brothers, not from fear, but from the weight of being ruled, rather than respected. When demigods rose to prominence, like Heracles, Perseus, or Achilles, Zeus didn't always celebrate them. He feared what they represented: strength, born of mortals, legacies not tied to his name. Even his own sons were never free of his control. Zeus would raise heroes, but never let them rise too far. Whenever Olympus threatened to evolve, Zeus crushed dissent. Not through wisdom, but through fear. His arrogance didn't just shape Olympus, it paralyzed it. In a divine court where voices should have ruled together, only thunder was heard. Across the myths of ancient Greece, gods were flawed, jealous, petty, impulsive, but one stood above them all, not in virtue, but in volume. Zeus, king of the gods, worshipped in temples, feared in stories. But when the thunder quiets and the smoke clears, a different image of him emerges. He punished those who brought hope to humanity. He abused his power to silence rebellion. He shattered oaths, sowed chaos through lust, and leveled his wrath not just against threats, but against truth. Where mortals saw a protector, history reveals a tyrant. Where Olympus demanded reverence, it masked fear. In the end, Zeus wasn't the savior of Olympus, he was its storm. And like all storms, he left destruction in his wake. Zeus, for centuries his name has echoed as king, as judge, as father of gods and men. But myth is not history, it is memory, shaped by fear, by power, and by those who survive it. If we strip away the thunder, if we silence the hymns, what are we left with? A god not guided by justice, but by pride, not revered for his goodness, but obeyed out of fear. Perhaps the question isn't whether Zeus was a villain, but why we accepted him as a hero. In the stories we tell, power often wears a crown, but truth wears no disguise, and sometimes, even the king of gods must answer to it.